So, Excellency, Honorable guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite the next speakers, Professor Kelly King from Japan, and the topic is Learning and Tutoring World Books Club, Learning from University Students. So we would play the video presentation record for our Professor Kelly King. So please welcome.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly King, and I'm coming to you from Japan, the University of Fukui. And today I'm going to talk about learning and tutoring via book club, lessons from university students. I'm really just talking about some of the work that I do, and if it's interesting or helpful to anyone, then I'm very happy about that. Before I go on, I'd really like to say thank you to Dr. Chanroth for allowing me to be part of this. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be talking to the students at the New Pedagogical Research Center. And I want to say thank you to all the organizing committees, the international and the local organizing committees, and all of the great work that you've done. I also would like to introduce a couple of my colleagues who are here at this conference. First of all, from the University of Fukui, Chris and Wayne, who presented on Monday some of the work that they're doing with project-based learning. Usually we work together, and so it's kind of odd for me to be doing this without them. And also Pauline, who's from the Department of Professional Development of Teachers here at the University of Fukui. And Pauline does a lot of wonderful work. She's a great person, and she's doing a workshop on lesson study and talking about that. And also, yeah, at the same time, she was also presenting yesterday. So hopefully you saw them. And if you didn't, please watch their videos later. All right. And last but not least, my friend and colleague, Michelle Fazio, who is presenting with her student tomorrow morning. And I will let her speak for herself, but she's a wonderful person and a wonderful presenter. Okay. So my outline goes like this. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, for what it's worth, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the program I teach in and the work that I do in UPass and in book club, and hopefully have some sort of conclusions. So my background. I'm from Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts. I lived in New York for a short time, lived in New Mexico for a short time. But I've spent more than half of my life in Japan. So I come to you, I'm American. I think I'm a typical American in some ways, but a lot of my life has been spent outside of the US. In Japan, I've lived in a number of different places as well. I lived in Kanagawa and Tokyo for a long period of time. I lived in Akita Prefecture for 7 years, and I've now been in Fukui a little over 7 years. My education has been in the US mostly. I did my undergraduate degree in upstate New York, my master's degree at University of Massachusetts at Boston, and my PhD at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. So in many cases, my education has been both traditional and non-traditional. I went directly from high school to college, but it took me many, many years to go back. And a lot of that had to do with the work that I was doing. My work experience was mostly in Japan. Like I said, I've spent most of my time in Japan, and most of my work experience has been in Japan. I began as a language teacher. I began working in junior high schools without any preparation, really. And so mentoring for me was very important. I worked with wonderful teachers in the schools, and if it weren't for them, I don't think I would have ever taught again. And I'm a language learner, a lifelong language learner. I'm still learning my identity. I identify as bicultural, bilingual, somewhat embarrassingly because I am definitely dominant English. I'm a dominant English speaker, but I feel like I've been in Japan so long that sometimes I forget that I'm not from here. Okay. So where I work, the School of Global and Community Studies. Now I should say something. We're pretty small at the University of Fukui. University of Fukui has 4 colleges. There is the College of Engineering, the College of Education, the College of Medicine, and then there's us. It's very small. We're the College of, or the School of Global and Community Studies. We began about 4 years ago now, and we had our first graduating class this year in 2020. And we have these 2 sections. There's the global studies and the community studies. And I'm a member of the global studies, but a lot of the work that I do has to do with the community. And so I think in some ways it's something we need to think about, whether global and community really need to be separated in this way. And this is something we do talk about in our in the School of Global and Community Studies. So these are some of the courses I teach. As I mentioned earlier, I come from a language teaching background, and I teach courses, English medium courses, right? So I teach courses in English. And some of these courses are required. Freshman students have to take a number of English courses: reading, writing, listening, speaking, and a TOEFL course, and so on. In the first year courses, I teach reading and listening. And I also teach a reading course in global studies in the second year. And I teach an academic reading course, the first year academic reading course in the fall semester, which is what we are in right now. And that is the course that I developed book club for, just so that you have some background on that. In addition to these, I teach a lot of other courses, and I'm showing you this because for me, even though I'm teaching a number of different courses, there's a lot of overlap. One very interesting thing that happened this semester is in my qualitative research methods course, several of the students are also tutors in my book club, and 3 of them decided to do these mini research projects that they're working on about book club. And that was really interesting to me. I didn't expect that to happen. But a lot of my courses overlap. My PBLs, I teach 3rd and 4th year PBL course. The theme is immigration in Japan and how to support local foreign residents in Fukui. It's become a service learning course, and I teach that for a full year. And there's a lot of very interesting things happening there. Our students are going into elementary schools. They're working with students from Vietnam, from the Philippines and other places who are living in Fukui. So even though we may perceive Japan as a nation where there is little immigration, in recent years, the number of immigrants living in Japan, even though in Japan we don't talk about that as immigration per se, the number of immigrants living in Japan has increased a lot. And on that, just a note, although the members, the people that I've introduced to you from University of Fukui are all non-Japanese, that's not to say that the Japanese faculty are not doing really wonderful work. The fact that none of them are here at this moment has more to do with my poor PR skills than anything else. Fukui is not very well known, even in Japan, but that's a bit of a shame because we do some really good work. The work on lesson studies and professional learning communities is really important in Fukui, and I would love to have a chance to invite many of you to come here and to look at, to come and look at our schools and what's happening here. Okay. Next. All right. So I borrowed this from Dr. Irby. This is a 2018 mentoring and tutoring partnership and learning journal. And I really feel this is an excellent framework for me to think about where does tutoring and the work that we do in tutoring here at University of Fukui, how does that connect to mentoring? Where are the areas of overlap? And so I won't discuss this particular graph, but for me, it was very helpful to look at this and to think about where mentoring and tutoring overlap, where they're related, what the relationships are, and maybe question in my own practice, in the practice of my students, how we can, what else we can do, and how we can connect mentoring. I think because I think that the book club that we're doing, I think there's some overlap. I think there's some mentoring happening, not only tutoring. Okay, so let me then talk about UPass. UPass is the University Peer Academic Support Services, and we are run through the University Language Center. This is important because our focus is really on language support. There are 3 faculty advisors. I'm one of them. I'm supporting students who work with English, and my colleague Yvonne is also working in English, and then our colleague Kuwabara Sensei. Kuwabara Sensei is a Japanese language professor, and she does a lot of support working with students, our international students. So we work together. I do the main training, which I'll talk about in a minute, the tutor training, but we all take a part of this, and Kuwabara Sensei does extra training, additional training for students who wish to support Japanese language. So our mission, we're independent, we believe, we hope. I don't know if that's going to change, but we're a student-oriented learning community, and our goal is to support students. We want them to develop confidence in linguistic and academic abilities, and we really want them to realize their potential for self-directed learning. We believe in all students. This is not just this really is our mission. It's not just what we say. If you want to, you can look at the website there, and you can be introduced to some of our tutors. Currently, we have about 12 or 13 tutors, I believe. Several of them are from other countries. I recently helped to train a new tutor who's from Cambodia. She's wonderful. She's going to be supporting TOEIC. Okay. So this is us. All right, so I'd like to talk a little bit about what we do for tutor training and tutor support. As I mentioned, I'm basically responsible currently for these interactive workshops with our students who want to become tutors. There's about 10 hours in training at the beginning. This year has posed a bit of a problem because we are doing everything online. And one of the things that really makes the training work is the interaction. So with students' schedules, with all of this online, it's been somewhat difficult to get everybody together in the same room. And so this is my challenge over the next years to make sure that I don't separate the groups out, that everybody gets to do their training together. Okay, well, in the training itself, we do have homework. There are some reading exercises and writing exercises, and that is related to self-reflection. It's really important for students to understand their own beliefs about learning. We are now focused more about how people learn rather than how to teach. Teaching is very important, but it's also important to know how individuals learn. So it's also important for our students, our tutors, to understand their own beliefs about this. We do checklists for them to prioritize things. We do case studies. They engage in role playing. We talk about ethics, very important topics. We do some listening strategies. And if we were going to do a workshop, which is what I originally hoped we were going to be doing together, my students and I, this is probably what we would have done with you. And I hope we can do it together next year. And we talk a little bit about learning styles, not that, there are these specific styles that each person has per se, but that there are differences in how we learn individually, culturally, and so on. And then we talk about the tutor cycle, which I'll show you a slide about in a minute. And just an example of one of the activities that we do, pretty basic questions at the very beginning. Students write, and then we discuss, they discuss in small groups, and then we discuss as a large group. But, what are their goals? What kind of habits or tricks do they have that work for them in their English reading and writing? What's their image of a good tutor? What philosophy do they have about how people learn? What do they think a session would look like, right? What do you expect from tutoring? What do you expect from your tutees? And what do you think your tutees would expect from you? These are the types of questions we discuss at the very beginning. This is an activity that I do every time with my group. And the question, how are tutors different from teachers? And this has brought out a number of really interesting things, somewhat detrimental to teachers. Many times students will say things like, teachers are not really focused on individuals. They have to focus on the group, which of course is true. But tutors, they can focus on an individual level so they can have better relationships with their tutees. And there'll be, a lot of the things that come out about teachers are very interesting. And this idea that teachers lecture and that tutors discuss. And it just brings to mind this idea that, that maybe many of us have it, that teachers are, just authority figures in the classroom, and that we tell everyone what to do, how to do it, and that we're not really engaged in a dialogue with our students. And it's very interesting to me because I believe very differently. And I do think some of that comes out of being a language teacher. Now, if you're a language teacher, you cannot possibly just begin by talking all the time. So, you have to have activities. You have to be scaffolding. You have to be creating opportunities for students to interact with each other. Otherwise, they can't use the language. They can't learn the language. So this happens pretty much every time, but I'm always newly surprised by the ideas that many of our students have about teachers. And it's somewhat depressing, and I'm hoping that this changes through our dialogue together. Okay, so with tutors, and I think this was true when I went to graduate school. I originally went to I mentioned I was at University of Massachusetts at Boston. One of the I had been teaching for a while, but I didn't really know how to teach, right? So when I went to graduate school, a lot of our courses were about theories of teaching, theories of learning. And for me, that was perfect because I'd had a lot of practice per se, but I didn't really know where my ideas had come from. And for me, that was a perfect fit. But for students who were coming directly from their undergraduate programs and going directly into this graduate program, they really wanted practical, they really wanted methods. They wanted to know how to teach, what to do when they got to the classroom. And so there's this tension, I think, a lot of times, because, we talk about pedagogy, and pedagogy for me is incredibly important. You have to have your beliefs, you have to know where you come from and how that fits into what you do in the classroom, what you do as a tutor. But at the same time, if you've never done it before, you need a way in. You need a way to start working, right? And so for us, that's the tutor cycle. It's not meant as something students have to follow all the time when they're tutoring, but it's a way in. And I think this is really important. And I'm taking this from, I think it's the University of Portland. Now I can't remember. Sorry about that. But there are a lot of different versions of the tutor cycle. But originally, I believe it comes from the master tutor from McDonald. And there are many. Some of the original cycle, I believe, has something like 12 or 13 steps. This is a somewhat simplified version, but I think it's very important to have a way in and have an organization, right? So a lot of our students feel comfortable when they feel like, okay, I can start with this. I know that I should set an agenda at the beginning. I need to find out what the student needs and wants and discuss how we can work together. And then we can do these other things. We can follow up. I can summarize. I can listen to them. I can have them read aloud if they're writing a paper. I can do all these different things, but I have an organization and I have something to fall back on in case I don't know where to go next in this 1 hour that I'm very nervous about my first time. So that is what the tutor cycle is for us. And I'm going to talk about book club in a minute. And even in book club, I have students write weekly reports, and I do ask them, do they include the tutor cycle in there, just to see how this works for them. Okay, what I'm showing you next is what I sent to the reading tutors about my proposal for book club. And book club, I'll talk about it in a minute, but I'm just going to read a little bit about my purpose in initiating book club. So my purpose in initiating the book club or reading circles is that every year when I ask students if they like to read, and these are the students in my freshman reading class, few students respond affirmatively. So I have for some time been wondering how to engage students in reading fiction in ways that may change their minds. Yes, I admit it. I hope more students will actually enjoy reading, and that because they enjoy it, they will develop vocabulary and grammar knowledge, and especially that they will gain confidence. And I visualize this in a cycle or circle. And I guess the tutor cycle has really impacted my thinking, because I tend to think of everything as a circle now, or a cycle. Okay, and a little bit more about my letter to the reading tutors at the beginning. So again, my purpose for the book club is to hopefully allow students more time to engage with the novel we're using in class, and this is The Giver. I hope they'll have many opportunities to talk about and share their ideas in a safe community of readers. I want the book club or reading circles to take place outside of class for two reasons. There's not enough time during class for all students to ask questions or fully develop their ideas about the story. And I believe that students will feel more free, freely discuss their ideas and make mistakes and discoveries when the teacher's not around. Okay, so when we have these book clubs, or when the students have these book clubs, they are required of all of my students in my reading class. There are usually 3 to 4 students per tutor, and they meet for about an hour outside of class every week. So I tell the tutors that their job in this context is a group leader. They're not expected to be a teacher. They're not expected to have to answer every question or comprehension question about the giver. But in fact, whenever possible, the book club members should have opportunities to do the talking, and that they should be figuring out answers together. So here's just a picture of the book that we use, The Giver. And just for people who are not familiar with this book, it's a dystopian young adult fiction. I've been using it for a number of years, and at some point I could talk a lot about this, but I don't have a lot of time to do that today. But I've been using it with students with a lot of success over the years. In many ways, because it's a very strange community. You have to kind of figure out what's happening as you go. And there's a lot of, it's a futuristic novel, but it's very realistic and worrisome for a lot of our students, especially this year. It was quite poignant with everything that's been happening in the world. So I really wanted my students to have a chance outside of class, not just to do reading comprehension, but to be able to talk about how this book relates to their own experiences, and to question things in the book, and to do that away from my eyes, so that they can feel free to talk about what they want to talk about, and also to talk with their senpai. Senpai in Japanese are students who are older than them. They have this, they can start building a relationship with students who are older than them, who they might not have otherwise have a chance to talk to. And a lot of the students have given me feedback that that's what they like best about book club, is that they had this chance to create a relationship with students, their senpai, students in the 3rd or 4th year or the 2nd year, who they might not otherwise have met. So even in our small school of global and community studies, not all of the students get to meet each other. Their schedules are very busy. They work part-time jobs, and they take a lot of classes. So they do need time to talk. Okay, and I won't have a chance to talk about this particular slide, but the students are writing beautifully. And I think a lot of this has to do with the book clubs. This is a student this semester who wrote in one of her journals about some of the changes and some of the things she thinks are going to happen in the book from now. And the students are writing that there's a lot more depth to their writing. They're writing longer, they're writing more. And the feedback I get from the students over the last few years has been that because they've had a chance to talk to their senpai and their classmates in a relaxed atmosphere, that they can do this, and that they can think more, and they have a little bit more confidence to imagine what might happen next, or to think about how all of the things happening in the book, are connected or not connected to their own lives. Okay. So I just wanted to take a minute at the end. Again, my identity, lifelong learner, definitely true in my case, having only a few years ago finished my PhD. It's taken me a long time, but I'm happy with the way I've done it. I'm happy with that I've done it in steps over time, and that I've gotten to have these different opportunities, and that throughout it all I've been teaching and the teaching has informed my studies. And I'm proud to be a teacher. That is most of the work that I do. Even though I'm at a university, I predominantly teach, and I'm very, very happy with that. And my pedagogy, my beliefs, I come from the sociocultural theory of learning, right? That interactions are key, that we have to think about how a person's individuality, the cultural background and so forth, impacts how they learn, and that learning together and cooperating, collaborating is very important. And Paulo Freire, back in University of Massachusetts, Boston, my first introduction to Paulo Freire, and working for social justice. And I think these are the things that I bring with me all of the time. But as I mentioned earlier, and back, that there's a tension in the work, right? Methodology versus or plus method, right? So I believe that living your beliefs is more important than the methods that you use in the classroom. But yet, as I work with students, and I think that's the same with new teachers, it's really important that they have a way in. So methods are a way in. We don't have to stick to the methods, but it's really important for people to feel that they have a way in and have an understanding at the beginning of their work. Okay. Okay, and I did want to talk a little bit more about my students, and I just wanted to read a couple of things from feedback that students have given me. Some of these are comments about what they liked and did not like about book club. And here's a negative comment. I want to bring that in because not every student loves everything about book club. Book club was only for discussing. So if there's an activity to create something, not a report, it would be more interesting. Okay. The relaxed atmosphere of book club is what makes it work. I believe just sticking to it, not implementing any strict schedule, and letting people have occasional chats on different topics is the way to keep it great. I think making rules that students should think of at least one question per student would improve reading support activities. So students have very different opinions, but and this is ongoing. I'm going to be collecting some more data in the form of feedback from my tutors. We'll be meeting soon to get some of their insight. They do send me feedback, weekly reports, but also to find out how they're doing and give them another chance to talk to each other. Okay, so let me finish because I will talk too much, as I already have.
So thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Felix King. So far, we have a lot of questions in the chat box. So without further delay, I would like to read a question for you. So now I would like to combine some questions together to save some time for you. The question from Chanti Wade, there are 3 questions, and I just like to combine the question together. So could you please mention more about, the challenges and how to overcome it within some strategy? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm having some difficulty hearing. Could you repeat?
Yep. So could you please mention more, about, some challenges or difficulty when you generate club for the students, as well as, the effective to use, the effective, to use the books with the students, and, some strategy to encourage students to write a book report. Thank you.
So if I understand the question correctly, you're asking about the book itself.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So in choosing the book, so The Giver, This came about, it's been, I've been using this book for about 7 years. Well, it's about 7 years in total. And I originally decided to use the book because it's something that you have to piece together. And it's not, it's a world that is different from our world. And so you have to kind of understand what's happening. And so I thought it was a good fit for the students. And I tried it out a few times, and students really liked it. We had a lot of discussions in class about it. And so even though I would like to move on, I'd like to pick some other books as well. And because this works so well, I'm a bit afraid to change at this point. But with the book and, some difficulties, students at the beginning tend to have a really hard time, right? And I think that's where the book club comes in. They have a hard time entering the book, right? Understanding what the situation is. And so once they, at the beginning, they need a lot of support. They need to be able to ask a lot of questions. And, we have 3 hours a week for class, but half of the class is used. We have other textbooks in the class as well. This is just one of the texts we use in class. So they need time to talk about this with the tutors. So I think, I don't know if I answered the question at all, but they definitely need extra time to talk about it. And in order to have them, I do have them write in class. They write journals about the novel. They write about 8 journals over the semester. And when I was first teaching the book, the journal writing wasn't the depth wasn't there. I would say write a paragraph for each question. And they might, write a sentence. And if you saw with the one slide, that one student wrote, 3 paragraphs on one question. And it's not just the amount that they're writing, but the ideas and their ability to, or maybe the confidence, maybe they always had the ability, but they have the confidence to actually, write about what they think is happening and their ideas, even if they're not sure that they're the correct answer, right? Up until now, a lot of times students wanted to only talk if they had the correct answer to the question. And I've seen through book club that they're a little bit, they feel a little bit easier to question the book. And I really think that has a lot to do with them having a space outside of class to talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. So it should be the last question for you because of time constraint. So one more question from Marianne's or Excel's. How do you choose the books you read together? And how do you ensure that they are topics or subjects that will resonate with students?
Yeah. Of course, this is really important. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I happened to choose this. I was at one point reading a lot of books, young adult fiction. So I was myself reading books and thinking about what my students might be able to do with the different types of books that I was reading. The Giver, of course, was written in the 90s. It's written quite a while ago, but there are a lot of newer stories that are kind of on the same topic, this dystopian world. And I think that most students can understand, that, there's some fear about what's going to happen in the future and that there's a past that maybe people don't want to talk about at some point. And I think that these issues do resonate with students, but how I know that they resonate, I first have to try it. So yeah, I try it first, and then if it didn't work, then I wouldn't use it again. And I do ask students what books that they've read and what they're interested in. Yeah.
Thank you so much for both question and answer. I am pretty sure that this presentation as well as question and answer would be useful for our audience. So let me I'm sorry for the question that has not answered in the chat, so that's why this question will be answered in the forum. So because of time constraint, we could not answer all questions that have been dropped in the chat box, and the rest question would be answered in the forum. So thank you so much, Professor Kelly King. So now you come to the end of your presentation. So thank you so much. Thank you.